Hey everybody, my name's Tristan. I'm coming from the company called INVENSITY. We're an engineering technology consulting company. And one thing we do a lot of is safety management work and safety management consulting. So I have my colleague and one of our safety experts of INVENSITY, Tejas here. How's it going, Tejas?
Hey Tristan, how you doing?
Good, good, thanks. And Tejas is going to give a quick walkthrough of SOTIF and what that looks like, what that means in the industry. And I won't say too much more because I'll let Tejas just give a good overview and dive into a short presentation. So maybe first, Tejas, you can give a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. Thanks for watching this presentation, guys. My name is Tejas. I've been with Invensity for almost 5 years now. My background is actually in materials science and photography. I studied this in Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon. But after I graduated, I decided to kind of come this technology consulting route. Got a lot of training from Invensity and spent a lot of time kind of developing my skill set specifically in functional safety. Ended up working with a lot of the tier one suppliers, some of the OEMs, some self-driving companies, and built up my expertise in this area in the past few years. So we've been kind of working since, let's say, 2016, since I started working, growing our expertise, growing our base here in Detroit, really growing our path within these different companies. And we've learned a lot on the way. In the past few years, SOTIF has become a topic that's been very relevant and interesting to a lot of our self-driving clientele. And we decided, you know what, we should probably also incorporate that within our technology and services as well. So that's something that I was going to kind of give you guys a short overview about, explain to you like how we learned about it, and also kind of explain how we were end up kind of diving into this topic. I think we have another kind of conference call scheduled later on this afternoon, and I can maybe dive a little bit deeper on the story of how we actually got to the SOTIF part. But I think this one I'll just kind of give you guys a short overview on what SOTIF is and kind of how it's applicable and how it relates to ISO 26262. If it's okay with you, Tristan, I'll start sharing my screen and we'll go from there.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. So let's begin our presentation. So I think the big question here is we try to understand that ISO 26262 was like at some point um, kind of thought of as not necessarily a requirement, but more of something that's an option. And I think as we've spent time and started to realize, we've realized that okay, it's becoming something that's pretty much necessary. And ISO 262 is now a requirement by many OEMs, and hence many suppliers have been starting to kind of incorporate it. So similarly, SOTIF I think is currently this trait that people think is very optional and maybe not as necessary. But I try to say that it's going to be a necessity, especially if we're moving towards full automation, if we're moving towards completely self-driving vehicles. SOTIF is going to be something that's definitely necessary in the long run. So, kind of, I want to explain how SOTIF is a necessity. I also want to kind of explain why it's a necessity and how it compares to ISO 26262. I will go completely into detail. This is a pretty lengthy presentation. I just kind of want to hit the main summary. But part of the things that I'll address, why is SOTIF? Why is that being addressed? Why does it need to be introduced? And I'll also definitely go into ISO 26262 versus SOTIF. Those are the two kind of main topics I'll definitely jump into. So, kind of going into why SOTIF needs to be introduced. So, as you can understand, any self-driving vehicle requires huge volumes of data, right? There's complex algorithms, there's AI machine learning. I mean, these are very critical algorithms, software, just very new, up and coming, and in depth engineering that is required for a self driving vehicle to operate. And in order to avoid whether it's a major hazard or whether it's a smaller hazard, AI has to make a decision, right? And these include scenarios that require situational awareness, right? The self-driving vehicle needs to be aware of what's going on in its surroundings, similar to a human being driving a vehicle. So what SOTIF tries to do is it really tries to reduce the number of unsafe scenarios that may occur during the normal operation of the system. So what the AI does is it tries to make decisions and reduce the number of safety hazards that could occur on any kind of given day. And SOTIF provides guidance on design, verification, validation, very similar to ISO 26262 when applying these measures. So you can help achieve safety in situations without failure. So one thing I do want to address, like this is one of my main points here, is that SOTIF definitely provides a different coverage. ISO 262 is still important, it's still relevant. ISO 21434 for the cybersecurity experts in the room, that's also very relevant and necessary. SOTIF is another layer on top of that. It's not something that we believe it can be done instead of that. It's something that needs to be done on top of that. Providing that different coverage is what I think is very important to first understand. These things are not, what SOTIF covers is not necessarily going to be covered by ISO 26262. It also probably will not be covered by 21434 either. These are different hazards, different scenarios, different situations that SOTIF does cover. Just to kind of give a little bit more of a understanding of kind of what SOTIF does is, if we look at Area 1, Area 1 is kind of what we can represent as the known safe scenarios. So obviously we want to maximize this, right? As you can see after SOTIF, we have maximized Area 1. Area 2 is the unknown, unsafe scenarios. So obviously we are trying to minimize Area 2. And then there's these known unsafe scenarios, which is X, and that's where we bring SOTIF in. And SOTIF, what it's trying to do is, we're trying to figure out any scenario that we can figure out, whether known or unknown. We're trying to minimize that as much as possible. And we're trying to figure out all the different scenarios the vehicle can be in. We're trying to really minimize the number of unsafe scenarios that may occur during the intended functionality. That's what SOTIF does. But here's an example. Everyone's heard of automatic emergency braking. This is a very common feature present from, pretty much every car nowadays has this kind of feature. And it's considered a safety feature. So say you're driving in a scenario where there's a painting resembling a playing child on the road. Let's say it's to raise driver awareness, or let's just say somebody did a very beautiful chalk drawing or something of that nature on this road. This image could actually trick the optical vision system. So say if you're using a camera vision, and it catches this painting or this child playing painting on the road, this image could trick the optical vision, and it could trick the camera vision. False pedestrian recognition or whatever of that kind of a feature could lead to a false braking, maybe result in a rear-end collision, and actually there'd be nothing actually there. So technically, ISO 262 does not cover this hazard because there's no electrical failure. The system is working within its given specifications. What SOTIF does here is says, okay, look, although we did see something in our camera vision, maybe after SOTIF we say, okay, let's do another kind of system improvement so we can prevent this hazard. So additional sensors, maybe we can cross-reference this. Maybe we check the radar or check the infrared, or if we do improve our recognition algorithms. So there's kind of a way to kind of make sure our recognition algorithms are doing a better job. That's where SOTIF kind of comes into play and makes an effort to make sure that we really do a good job in trying to make sure that even though this optical vision system is working as it should be, it's doing the best scenario possible. That's why SOTIF kind of needs to be introduced. Another example, this is something common for us people kind of here in Michigan, is very much so the concept of just icy roads. Now, when we're driving around in Michigan and we can see that the roads are icy, we're not braking as hard, we're not accelerating as hard. We don't want to lose control of our vehicle, even if we have all-wheel drive or snow tires or whatever whatever is necessary. But I think sometimes maybe the AI vehicle may not respond to that and may continue making turns and making stops as it always does, or maybe a little bit more sensitive. Um, what ISO 262 again does not kind of cover these scenarios. There's no hazard, there's no failure of the system, there's no mistake that the vehicle is making. It's just not synchronized to what's happening in its surroundings. So what SOTIF does is, just adds a little bit of extra sensors, maybe improve reactionary algorithms to these given scenarios. That's why, at a bottom line, why SOTIF should really be introduced is just to make sure that it just takes into account what's happening kind of in its scenarios. So one thing that's kind of I think people have already mentioned, and some other people, let's say from Intel, and some people even taking into account like Uber's accident. People very much are very on the forefront to say we don't think ISO 262 is enough to guarantee safety. So the industry has definitely seen Uber accidents and other events in which autonomous driving technologies were misbehaving. So there has to be another level of kind of making sure that these machine learning algorithms and this technology can kind of figure out what its scenario it's in an accurate methodology. So I do want to kind of bring up this chart. This kind of gives us a little bit more perspective. So there's 3 different standards mentioned here, just to give you a perspective. ISO 262, we consider up to level SAE safety level 1. I think that's around a good measure of where we think safety is covering. There's 21448, which is SOTIF. That kind of covers up to level 3. But as you can see, it's not technically not covering from 0 to 1. That's ISO 262 responsibility. And then we have 21434 that covers all the way through level 5, which is definitely the cybersecurity part. And then we also have UL 4600. These are all different scenarios that need to be taken into account when developing a fully self-driving car. Again, as I mentioned, UL 4600 or SOTIF don't replace ISO 26262. Similarly, UL 4600 doesn't replace SOTIF. They're all kind of being done in addition. They're all being done in a strategic manner so that you work together and kind of develop these scenarios. I do want to just do a quick comparison of functional safety and SOTIF, just to make sure people are all on the same page. ISO 262 is coverage of systematic failures, electronics, hardware. SOTIF is more coverage of situational and environmental scenarios. We have the V model that works with 26262. SOTIF this is kind of a term we've made up. It's called the W model. There's a little bit of pre-work required, but a lot of the engineering and a lot of the SOTIF coverage actually happens during the V model as well. So they can actually be working simultaneously. Analysis for functional safety should happen at the beginning or during product development, which allows the product to have an in-depth, robust development. On the other hand, analysis for SOTIF should kind of be conducted before ISO 26262 V model begins. It really helps to actually make your functional safety lifecycle more robust too. So not only are you improving the product, you're actually improving the functional safety part of the work too. If you have separate teams, if possible, working on SOTIF and working on FUSA, you're able to get a very, very safe product, and you're able to actually achieve a lot more success. Here's kind of that W model I was mentioning. You can kind of see you do this part of the W model first, and then comes in the regular V model. And all of these things kind of work hand in hand, right? There's functional and system specifications, hazardous use case identification, V&V strategies. All of these things can be back and re-improved and worked in the cycle together. But as you can see, the SOTIF kind of comes first before kind of the regular V model definitely starts. So kind of just to wrap things up, a truly safe system includes SOTIF, FUSA, cybersecurity, and additional safety argument for fully autonomous vehicles, especially when dealing with anything that's level 3 and above. SOTIF really aims to identify and reduce the number of unsafe scenarios that may occur during the normal operation of a system. This is again not mistaken to be mistaken with ISO 26262, which only dives into the realm of hardware or electrical or systematic failures. SOTIF, as I mentioned, is intended to be performed before and in parallel to the ISO 26262 cycle, but also separate SOTIF loops are possible. And by completing this work prior to 26262, there is a higher level of situational awareness that can be brought in the development of a safe system. So we recommend kind of to introduce SOTIF as a topic as soon as possible. And, we think you shouldn't wait. We think don't consider it after the fact. If you want the best benefit of the system, definitely introduce it as early as possible. FUSA work can continue, but there should be a level of SOTIF analysis that kind of takes place in order to help thoroughly develop a safe autonomous system. Some key steps for those who are interested: functional system specification (STPA), and identification and evaluation of hazards by the intended functionality. You can reach out to us in a little bit more detail. We can kind of give you guys a breakdown, kind of give you guys how we've developed work products, templates, things of that nature, kind of to specifically tackle SOTIF products. We've done it for some of our self-driving customers. We've also implemented it for one of our self-driving customers in San Francisco too. So they've started including this into their products and their processes as well. So feel free to contact us. We love to help out. We definitely think it's a very up and coming topic, and I think it's better to kind of get ahead and make sure you're prepared for kind of the given scenarios that we're going to be in. With that, I'll give it back to Kirsten.
Awesome. Thank you, Tejas. Appreciate that overview. I think it was really informative and gave some good insights as to what's going on with SOTIF, why it's necessary, and some other interesting tidbits about it. So I appreciate that. And to everyone, like as Tejas said, this was really released just to put the information out there and to help educate and kind of distribute some of the knowledge we've gained through our experiences. And that said, if you do have questions and you do want to know more, please don't hesitate to reach out. We really want to help whoever we can, and that's our goal and that's our vision. So if there's anything we can help you with in SOTIF, please don't hesitate to reach out with a question. Message us on the SAE page, LinkedIn, whatever's easiest. Tejas also shared his contact information. We look forward to hearing from you, and hope you found this content informational and entertaining.
Yep. Thanks for joining in.